Here we back with another one, man. Now, let's get into it. Now, before we get started, show love to the channel, support the channel for the fire content that I'm bringing on a constant basis. Now, let's jump into the subject matter for today. We're going to be talking about the latest updates in the political situation in West Africa. And stick with me because towards the end of the video, the reason why I entitled the video, History Repeats Itself, we are going to take a trip back over 100 years ago when the French government, just like they're doing today with ECOWAS, we're going to go back to the late 1800s when the French government used other African nations to invade and wage war upon another African nation to overthrow a regime. Yes, we're going to go back to the 1890s when the French government overthrew the government in Dahomey. When the French government launched a coup d'etat on the sovereign nation of Dahomey. The same people talking to us about democracy, we're going to go back to the 1890s when they launched a coup d'etat in West Africa to overthrow the regime in place and replace it with a colonial government. That's why the word democracy for me, it's a trigger word. It's very triggering. I don't like hearing it. I don't like hearing it at all. But anyways, let's get into the video today. Take a look up on the screen. ECOWAS has set a D-Day for a possible military intervention in Niger. A date has been set for a potential invasion. Of course, they're not going to tell us the date, but the dates and the deployments and everything, the resources are already in place. All they need is the green light, and they're ready to go. Now, let's continue. Let's jump into the article. ECOWAS says it has chosen an undisclosed day for a possible military invasion to restore Niger's democratically elected president following last month's overthrow. Abdel Moussa, the Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security for ECOWAS, has said that the military forces are ready to go anytime the order is given. The D-Day is also decided, which we are not going to disclose. Last week, ECOWAS ordered the activation of a regional standby force to prepare itself to enter Niger, which was taken over by a military government on July 26th. On Friday, Moussa reiterated that the bloc's priority remains the restoration of the constitutional order in the shortest possible time. We are not going to engage in endless dialogue. It must be fruitful, the commissioner added. He also called once again for the release of the country's legitimate leader, the ousted president Mohamed Bazoum, who has been held under house arrest with his wife and his children since he was overthrown by the armed junta. The military government in Niger has claimed that it has gathered enough evidence to prosecute him for high treason. We spoke about that a few days ago. Now, that was yesterday. Now, today, take a look up on the screen. A delegation from ECOWAS arrives in Niger a day after the D-Day invasion threat. Let's jump into the article. A delegation from regional nations arrived in Niger in a last-ditch diplomatic effort to reach a peaceful solution with the mutinous soldiers who overthrew the country's president last month. A plane carrying the delegation landed in the capital at about 1 p.m. on Saturday, a day after the bloc's military chiefs said they were ready to intervene to reinstate Mohamed Bazoum. Niger's governing military council confirmed the arrival of the ECOWAS representatives headed by former Nigerian leader Abdulsalami Abubakar. A previous ECOWAS delegation led by Abubakar earlier this month tried and failed to meet Bazoum and the coup leader, General Chiani. On August 10th, ECOWAS ordered the deployment of a standby force to restore constitutional rule in the country. The soldiers who overthrew Mohamed Bazoum in July have quickly entrenched themselves in power, rebuffed most dialogue efforts, and kept Bazoum, his wife, and son under house arrest in the capital. On Friday, the ECOWAS Commissioner for Peace and Security, Abdel Moussa, said 11 of the 15 member states agreed to commit troops to a military deployment, saying they were ready to go whenever the order was given. Now, who is giving the orders? Like, who's giving the orders, bro? Yo, this shit crazy, bro. Oh my God, when the order is given. So obviously, we not in charge over here, bro. So who's the big man? Who's the big chief? Who the boss man? All right, let's continue. Take a look up on the screen. On Friday, state TV in Niger said that Mali and Burkina Faso had dispatched warplanes in a show of solidarity. So after ECOWAS had said that they have set a date for invasion, Mali and Burkina Faso, they sent military aircrafts over to Niger. Let's continue. Friday's announcement is the latest in a series of empty threats by ECOWAS to forcefully restore democratic rule in Niger. Immediately after the coup, the bloc gave the military government 7 days to release and restore Bazoum, a deadline that came and went with no action. Now, I believe on this section of the article that we're interviewing some guy named Ouflaye Singh. I mentioned him in my previous video. Some white dude. He runs some think tank called the Sahel program at the Konrad Adenauer Foundation. And he said this: the coup leaders won't be holding their breath this time over the renewed threat of military action, said Ouflaye Singh. Mutinous soldiers are cementing their rule and appointing loyal commanders to key units, while ECOWAS has no experience with military action in hostile territory and would have no local support if it tried to intervene, he said. Niger is a very fragile country that can easily turn, in the case of military invasion, into a failed state like Sudan. Now, let's continue. On the streets of the capital on Saturday, many residents said they're preparing to fight back against an ECOWAS invasion. I told y'all that, bro. I told you. What did I tell y'all in my other video the other day? If I was a military advisor, if I was a political advisor in a country that has a population of 25 million people, all you need to do is mobilize 1 million of those people, bro. Just 1 million. 1 million. Because I guarantee ECOWAS is not coming with 1 million. And I guarantee it's going to be a few thousand ECOWAS troops versus a million civilians, plus the 10,000 military personnel, plus the Mali, Burkina Faso, Algeria, and then you got, them boys back in Moscow. You know what I'm saying? Listen, ECOWAS better relax. You better relax. You hear me? You better relax. Now let's continue. Thousands of people in the capital have lined up outside the main stadium to register as volunteers or fighters and to help with other needs in case the military government requires support. Some parents even brought their children to sign up. Others said they've been waiting since 3 a.m. while groups of youth boisterously chanted in favor of the military leaders and against ECOWAS and France. Nigga, let me relax before I get demonetized. I am here for the recruitment to become a good soldier. We are all here for that, said Ismail Hassan, a resident waiting in line to register. If it's God will, we will all go. Listen, bro, just mobilize 1 million civilians. 1 million civilians. And I told you, go back to my video the other day. I told you what to do. Once you mobilize them 1 million, I already told them what to do. I already told you the game plan. Back them into a corner, force them to embarrass themselves on the world stage. Force ECOWAS to embarrass themselves on the world stage. Force the Western powers to embarrass themselves on the world stage. Because I guarantee, if they annihilate innocent civilians, there's no way to justify that in the media. There's no way to justify that in the eyes of the world. There's no way to justify that. Washington and Paris will not be able to justify authorizing and backing a military invasion where a bunch of innocent civilians lose their lives. I'm sorry. It will not be a good look on the Western powers. It will be a terrible look for them. In terms of upholding democracy, you got to understand, this has been a bloodless coup. All the coups in the Francophone countries, all the overthrows in the Francophone countries, they've all been bloodless. No blood has been spilled. No blood has been spilled. You know why? Because those quote unquote democratically elected presidents, they didn't have the backing or the love of their people. So when they were overthrown, nobody stood in solidarity with them. Everybody stood in solidarity with the new military rulers. Because when you are a piece of shit leader who does nothing for your people, you steal the money, you do the bidding of foreign governments. When you get overthrown, everybody celebrates. Everybody throws a party. Nobody comes to your defense. Nobody comes to your rescue. Why do you think Mohamed Bazoum, he had to run to Washington and Paris when he got overthrown? He couldn't run to his population. He couldn't run to the citizens of his nation because they don't fuck with you. They don't rock with you. They're rocking with the new men in charge. Now let's continue. Now, if you take a look up on the screen, you'll see this is a screenshot from a video of all the volunteers, all the citizens in Niger that are volunteering to join the military. Because like I told you, Niger is one of the poorest countries in the world, bro. It's one of the poorest countries in the world, right? According to Donald Trump, he would label that as a S-hole country, right? He would say that it has nothing of value over there, right? But notice how all the Western powers, the United States, France, all these mega powerful nations, they're scrambling to maintain a presence. They're scrambling to maintain a connection and relationship in Niger, even though according to all data and statistics, Niger is just an impoverished nation in West Africa, right? You wouldn't think that Niger has anything special, but France is over here breaking their back. The United States over here sweating and stressing because they want to maintain a relationship with Niger. So obviously Niger has something special, right? Niger has something special. And as you can see, the citizens of Niger are ready to fight and die to maintain their homeland. You know, they're ready to fight and die, to fight against the Western powers. They're ready to fight and die, to fight against ECOWAS, which is backed by the Western powers. And it's been a while since I made a video talking about Tariq Nasheed, but yeah, you notice ever since this whole debacle been happening in West Africa, I haven't seen any videos from Tariq Nasheed that has been inflammatory towards Africans or black immigrants. I haven't seen it. Maybe he's still talking about it, but I haven't seen any video titles. I haven't seen any tweets. I noticed the xenophobia from Tariq Nasheed has heavily decreased, right? Because Africans on the continent are literally getting prepared to take up arms and bleed and die and fight against the most powerful nations in the world, right? They're not sitting up in a basement like Tariq Nasheed just yapping his mouth. You know what I mean? So let's get back into it. I believe I mentioned this earlier. Mali and Burkina Faso, they deployed military aircrafts over to Niger after ECOWAS made the announcement of a potential military invasion. Let's continue. Take a look up on the screen. The Prime Minister of Mali has called on the presidents of Senegal and Ivory Coast to avoid being manipulated by foreign powers and to refrain from initiating a war. Now, towards the end of the video, when I talk about when the French government had launched that coup d'etat against the democratically elected government of Dahomey back in the 1890s. And I say democratically elected because when the French invaded, the entire nation mobilized against the invading force. So that was democratically elected because he had the backing of his citizens. He had the backing of his nation. Thousands of men and women died to defend their homeland against the invaders. That was democratically elected. But when Mohamed Bazoum was overthrown, nobody said a word. Nobody stood in his defense. Nobody gave a fuck. Nobody cared because you don't have the backing of your people. Nobody loves you. You have to go run to Washington and Paris because you don't got the backing of your homeland. You have to go run to Washington and Paris because you don't got the backing of your people. You a fucking puppet. You a puppet and you don't get no love. You won't get no love. Nobody came to rescue you. You had to go call on Joe Biden and Emmanuel Macron. But during the scramble for Africa, when the invaders came, our kings, our rulers, our sovereign leaders, they had the backing of their people. You know why? Because when the invaders came, the entire nation mobilized to defend the nation. The entire nation mobilized to defend the king. Nobody mobilized to defend Mohamed Bazoum because they don't rock with you. They don't love you, bro. They don't love you. They don't love you. Washington might love you. The diplomats in Paris might love you, but the citizens of Niger, they don't love you. Now, let's continue. Now, before we jump back into the news, I'm going to take a look at some interesting tweets that I had seen that I thought were very important, that I thought were very interesting, and I think we should read them together. Take a look up on the screen. This is an intelligent brother that I follow on Twitter. I believe he's Nigerian. And he said this: France under Sarkozy led the NATO intervention in Libya. Little did he know that he was triggering a series of events that destabilized the Sahel and ultimately threatened 150 years of French dominance in that region. Absolutely. So if there's anyone that should take the blame for what is happening today, for the reason why Mali and Burkina Faso overthrew the leader and broke away from France, for why Niger overthrew the leader and broke away from France, why there's going to be many more Francophone countries in the future that overthrow the leader and break away from France. If there's anybody that should be blamed, blame the regime that came and invaded Libya and destabilized and destroyed the Sahel, to which the Sahel still to this day has not recovered. And we don't know when it will recover. Hopefully we'll still be alive when it recovers. But as it stands right now, France had made the mess, and now they want to clean up the mess by spilling more blood and causing more damage. It doesn't make no sense. And like I said, this was a bloodless overthrow, a bloodless military overthrow. Not a single shot was fired. Not a single blood has been spilled. So in response to a bloodless coup, they want to spill blood. You people are sick. You people are sick, bro. You people are sick. Let's continue. He went on to say, a lot of ink has been wasted on Wagner, Russia economic interests in Africa. But what about France's neocolonial economic interests in Africa? What about France's legacy of military intervention and supporting authoritarian leaders and dictators in Africa, right? They want to talk to me about this fucking democracy. They want to talk to me about this democratic bullshit. But they don't want to talk about how there's francophone presidents that's been in office for 40 years. Bro, I'm in my late 20s. Do you know that there's presidents in francophone West Africa that have been in office since before my parents even met? And they want to talk to me about democracy? And you know why France would support a president being in office for damn near 40 years? You know why? Is because if you have a regime in place that is friendly to your interests, then why fix something that's not broken? Why fix something that's not broken? I mean, yeah, the people might be unhappy, but who cares about the people? We care about our interests. I mean, that's the mentality. That's why you would see them talk about democracy when someone is not in their interest. But if somebody's in their interest, they'll let them sit in power for 100 years straight. 100 years straight, talking about he's democratically elected. Change the constitution, let him have 8 million terms in office. I'm sick of y'all, man. I'm sick of y'all, bro. I'll hate that country forever. I will hate that country forever. And my kids will hate that country, and my grandkids will hate that country. Everybody down my lineage will hate that country. I'll forever hate that country. I will forever hate that country to the day I die. All my descendants will hate that country for what they've done to my people, man. Let's continue. He went on to say, France has adopted an interventionist policy in Africa, resulting in 122 military interventions that average once a year from 1960 to the mid-1990s. Everyone in the West pretends to forget this, but Africans will not. He went on to say, has ECOWAS accomplished anything noteworthy with respect to West Africa's economy? After all, ECOWAS is supposed to mean the economic community of West African states, not a military defense pact like NATO. Or are they merely doing the bidding of Washington and Paris? You see, my Nigerian brother, my Igbo brother over here, he spit that fire, man. Shout out to him. Now, let's continue. He went on to say, he responded to a tweet where it said that U.S. businesses and investors are happy with Tinubu's policies, according to David Green. And he responded, he said this: I guess Nigeria is a great place to do business in the same way that Niger was a model of stability and democracy in the Sahel. Self-interest driven nonsense from Western diplomats with an obvious agenda. Man, shout out to that brother, man. Shout out to him. And let's continue. He went on to drop more fire. He said this. Now, in this statement, he was talking about Nigeria, but you could replace Nigeria with any black country in the world. Any black country in the world. You could replace Nigeria with Niger, Haiti, Jamaica, Bahamas, whatever. Any black country in the world. And this statement still stands. Let's read it together. Western governments expect Nigeria to muddle along in perpetuity. They have low expectations as long as Nigeria doesn't collapse. And even if it does, they'll be fine. Whether you are prosperous or dead broke, it's not their problem. Your interests diverge from theirs. I repeat, your interests diverge from theirs. I'm going to repeat it for a third time. Your interests diverge from theirs. Your interest as a black man diverges from the interest of the white man. Whatever they told you about holding hands together, we all God's children, we the human race, we all together. I'm going to need you to take all that BS and throw it in the trash can because they lied to you, bro. They lied to you. They lied to you. The political and economic interest of the black man is different from the political and economic interest of the white man, just like it's different to the political and economic interest of the Asian man. And even within those groups, you have different interests battling for supremacy. But overall, the black man and the white man, we have whole entire different visions for what we want the world to be. We cannot stand together in solidarity and humanity because your interests depend on my subjugation and my destruction, right? And my interests depend on your collapse and destruction as well. Because we both can't stand together. If Africa rises to a position of prosperity, the West will have to downsize. The West will have to take a massive economic hit. The quality of life for the average citizen in the West will drastically decrease if Africa rises to a position of supremacy and dominance. There can only be one champion sitting on top of the mountain. And like the brother said, our interests diverge from theirs, right? They don't care that you want to be economically free and independent. They don't care. They want access to the land. They want access to the industries. They want access to the natural resources. They want access. And in order for them to have access, you have to remain in a position of subjugation and humiliation. And in order for you to rise from that position of humiliation, they have to take a massive economic hit. Their economy has to suffer. Your interest diverges from theirs. There is no holding hands together. We not together. We'll never be together. We not together, bro. We not together. We not together, bro. We not together. We'll never be together either. Period. Let's continue. Now, take a look up on the screen. This is an interesting tweet from Natalie Yam. Shout out to Natalie Yam. She said this. You say you are the seventh economic power on the planet, but all your politicians, your geostrategists, your parliamentarians, and your experts, they say that the ejection of your army from the poorest country on the planet means the end of France. It's weird, isn't it? Yeah, man. I need me a younger version of Natalie Yam. Where you at, baby? I need me a young Natalie Yam that's like 25 years old, 22 years old, 23 years old, in her 20s, young and fine and intelligent. Where you at? I'm looking for you. NelsonAmadeus, he looking for you. I need that. Let's continue. She went on to say, take a look up on the screen. I confirm the French soldiers must leave. The CFA franc must disappear. French as an official language must be deleted. Official development assistance must be prohibited. The role of penholder on the Security Council must be abolished. If you consider this to be anti-French or pro-Russia, it means that you are nostalgic and a racist neo-colonist and that you are not done crying. Man, listen. Where the black women like this at, man? Where they at? Where they at? Where they at? NelsonAmadeus, I need that. I got a wedding ring for you right now. Let's go. Let's continue. Take a look up on the screen. The United States is making precautionary plans to evacuate 2 key drone and counter-terror bases in Niger if that becomes necessary under the West African nation's new ruling military government, the Air Force Commander for Africa said Friday. So preparing itself for the imminent, the United States is making plans to evacuate its drone bases in Niger because obviously the new administration in Niger is preparing to officially ask them to leave, as they've asked French soldiers to get out of the country. Now, take a look up on the screen. The relationship between France and the United States has grown tense over the political situation in Niger. French officials are frustrated that their American counterparts have been willing to engage with the military government that overthrew Niger's president. Listen, we talked about that last week. The 200-year alliance and friendly rivalry between the American government and the French government, right? Sometimes there's periods of hostility. Sometimes there's periods of camaraderie. But overall, they stand in solidarity with each other. France always expects the United States to have their back, especially against the black man. Ever since the Haitian Revolution, listen, the American government, the French government, they might disagree on many things. But one thing they've always been in solidarity with, we got to stand against the black man. If there's one thing we got to do, we got to make sure the black man remains on the bottom. That's one thing they've agreed upon. They disagree on a lot of things, man. But when it comes to their policy as it relates to the black man, they know, listen, as white men, you're a French man, I'm an American man, but one thing we know is we are standing against the black man. So, as you can see, that rivalry, that solidarity, it still exists still to this day, right? Even though right now they might disagree because the American government, like I told you, because Niger is such a strategic asset, Niger is such an important asset, they don't want to let it go. So the United States, take a look up on the screen, they've actually appointed an ambassador to the military government in Niger. Yeah, they've actually acknowledged the military government in Niger and they've appointed an ambassador. And that right there, it got France hot, boy. It got France upset, man. It got France upset for real. It was just like after the Haitian Revolution, right? After the Haitian Revolution, the British government was doing billions of dollars of commerce with the Haitian government, with King Henry Christophe's government. And France, oh man, France was hot back in 1809, back in 1811, back in 1813. Man, that rivalry between Great Britain and France was sick because France expected all the European nations to stand in solidarity as white men. But the British was like, nah, we need some of that sugar in that coffee, bro. We need that sugar in that coffee. So we gonna go down to Haiti. We're not gonna recognize them as an independent nation, but we definitely gonna go over there and buy some of that coffee and that sugar, man. We need that. And France was sick, boy. France was sick. Just like right now, the United States is appointing an ambassador because they need that uranium, bro. They need those resources, man. I'm telling you, it's no different like the British coming through to Haiti and buying up the coffee and the sugar and everything in between. Because at the end of the day, these are things that the world needs. The world needs the uranium. Just like during that time, the world needed coffee and sugar, bro. The majority of the coffee and sugar was coming out the French colony of Saint-Domingue. You think the demand for coffee and sugar went down just because there was a change in leadership or there was a different government in charge? No, of course not. Of course not. So at the end of the day, man, France is going through what it always goes through, man. Whenever there's a colony in rebellion, France always counts on their fellow white men to have their back. But sometimes their fellow white men don't have their back because their economic interests don't always align, right? You have your own personal interests, but I have my own economy. I have my own nation that I gotta protect. So, sometimes, that solidarity amongst white men, it ain't always there all the time. And that right there is our strength. Their division is our strength. Their infighting is our strength. We gotta keep them divided so we can conquer. We gotta run the opposite of divide and conquer. Just like Toussaint Louverture was able to get weapons and resources from the British and the Spanish and the Americans due to the infighting and the rivalry between the different European powers. The European powers back then, they were divided, and that's how the black man was able to conquer. As long as they're divided, we'll be able to conquer. But as long as we're divided, we'll be conquered. We got to stand together and we got to make sure they stay divided. Now, let's continue. Let's take a trip down memory lane back to when the French government had overthrew a democratically elected government and turned it into a colonial establishment. Take a look up on the screen. Now, before we get started, I just want to say I don't have any issue with Senegalese people. I got nothing but love for Senegal, man. I got a lot of subscribers out of Senegal. Shout out to y'all, man. Senegal is actually on one of my top lists of nations that follow my channel. So shout out to Senegal. Y'all produce some of the most beautiful black women walking the face of the earth. I just got to put that out there first. And I know during that time you were a colony of France, so I'm not going to hold this against you, but we have to tell the truth. We have to tell the truth. And in order for us not to repeat the same mistakes that we made yesterday, we have to study history. Because if we don't study history, that's why you make the same mistakes over and over. That's why I titled the video, History Repeats Itself. Now, let's read it together. The French army that conquered Dahomey, Niger, Chad, and Burkina Faso had just 12 French officers and over 10,000 Senegalese troops. Many people are under the impression that white men were just marching across the continent, stomping Africans. Now, take a look up on the screen. A French newspaper from 1892 reporting about the invasion of Dahomey. In the paper, it is characterized as a Senegalese invasion of Dahomey. And I titled the video History Repeats Itself because in the present day, ECOWAS, along with Senegal and also different West African member states, is preparing to invade Niger once again. Just like they invaded Niger back in 1892, back in the late 1800s. At the request of the French government, African men mobilized for war against other African men to advance the interests of white men from Europe. And today, we have African men mobilizing for war against other African men to maintain the interests of white men from Europe. And Senegalese troops are a part of that contingent. Of course, we got the Nigerians and we got the Ivorians and everybody else in between. But history repeats itself because many of us do not know these stories. So we think this is the first time this ever happened, right? We think this is the first time they ran this game on us, right? No. No. In fact, many of the same shit they run on us today, they run it on us because they ran it on you before, centuries ago, decades ago, and it was effective. And it's still effective today because you're dumb. And you're not dumb because of any genetic inefficiency. You're dumb because you don't study history. You're dumb because you don't care to study your history. You're dumb because you have an inferiority complex to where you don't value your history. You don't think your history is valuable to study. And that's why you're on the bottom. And I'm speaking to black men worldwide. Now let's continue. Take a look up on the screen. Even the commander of the French colonial forces in Africa, Alfred Dodds, was a French Senegalese biracial. What I tell y'all about them biracials with them white daddies, huh? What I tell y'all about them biracials with the black mothers and the white fathers. What I tell you. They've been a pain in our ass for a very long time. And if I got any subscribers, if you're a biracial with a white dad, I'm sorry, but I have to tell the truth. Just like I got love for the Senegalese, but I gotta tell the truth. Man. The biracial with the non-black father has been a pain in the ass of the black man for thousands of years. It has been a thorn in the side of the black man for thousands of years. The biracial with the non-black father has been waging war against the black man for as long as I can remember, for as long as I've studied, for at least 3,000 years. The biracial with the non-black father and the black mother has been of no value and has been a complete detriment to the black man, politically, economically, militarily, in every aspect of life. It's just a fact. I'm not insulting the entire demographic of multiracial people with white fathers, but I'm just telling you the historical record has proven that when the temperature gets hot, the biracial with the white father, 10 times out of 10, almost 10 times out of 10, he's going to pick up arms for his white father. Now let's continue. Now, before we get out of here, I'm going to wrap it up with this tweet that I've seen from this brother. I think it was pretty dope. He said this: ECOWAS says it's not only combat ready, but in fact has now decided on a D-Day for their long talked about military invasion in Niger. So while ECOWAS acknowledges that it's still hoping that diplomacy works, it has already picked a day to strike militarily in Niger. As we reported for so long, this war is not going to be a Niger war. It's going to be a war that will involve multiple countries fighting on the side of Niger, including Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, and beyond. This will not be a small war. It has potential to spread across the West African coast, and it'll happen very quickly. Many have called for only dialogue and diplomacy to be applied in this situation, but it seems that someone somewhere is losing it and just can't stand seeing African countries switch allegiance. Now, anyways, man, we can wrap it up right here, man. I don't got much to say. History repeats itself because you don't study history. When you don't study history, you are bound to make the same mistakes that your forefathers made yesterday. It is what it is. Anyways, it's your boy Neferkari Desalegn back in the building. Yes, indeed. Cash App up on the screen, and I'm gone. Peace.
Reincarnated, I'm back in original fashion. I left on a horse and came back in that ass, and I left with abundance and came back to famine. We used to be pyramids, now we be rapping. Look how the mighty have fallen. Used to be running, now we be walking. When you be cooning, that's when they applauded. Selling your soul, your sons and your daughter. Gotta come up in this shit, they stuck in the mix. Really, my heart it be breaking. That's why I'm stacking that paper and handle my business. Pass it down in generation. Talking about money and power and building a nation. That's a deadly combination. Never be watching the TV, they pushing agendas, falsifying information. Know they got malice intentions. Step in the room and I'm feeling the tension. Enemy watching me blocking my vision. Pay for the check cause I need my redemption. Building my kingdom, I need it protected. Ready for war like a young Money Congo. Never decided the team is the motto. Up in the crib and I'm whipping up waffles. Up in the crib and I'm smoking gelato. I'm chilling, I'm taking my pain and make it ambition. I'm blessed by the gods, but I ain't religious. I came for the power, they came for the bitch. They making no hourly wage, I got business. This shit is an art and they could never be taught. Selling my soul, I can never be bought. Play with my money, I see you ain't caught. Run to the check and I do it for sport. Babylon falling, I go to the source. Packing my luggage and go overseas. Shorty be with me and she so elite. Shorty be chocolate, I'm calling her Hershey. Secret intelligence probably gon' murk me. Don't fuck with brands cause nigga I'm Haitian. Say the wrong shit and you're smacking their faces.